Welcome to this video lecture on Murder in the Cathedral, a play by T.S. Eliot. In this play, there are certain keywords which appear in drama, and they are of great significance when we go through drama and when we analyze the drama point-wise, like poetic drama, martyrdom, chorus, temptation, interlude, sermon, conflict, history, religion, chancellor, archbishop. There are certain associations and affiliations also that we discover, and these associations and affiliations are between England, France, and Rome, though actual play takes place in cathedral itself. The principal characters in this drama are King Henry, Thomas Becket, priests, tempter, chorus singers, and knights. In this video lecture, I am going to present first a brief survey of the play, and then I will switch over to plot of the drama. First, I take up the brief survey of the play. Murder in the Cathedral is a verse drama by T.S. Eliot, and it was first performed in 1935. It was written at a time when fascism was rising in England as well as in Central Europe. It covers a very small span of time, is that December 2nd to 29 December of 1170. It follows the days that lead to death and martyrdom of Archbishop Thomas Becket. The first part of drama is confronted with worries and uneasiness of the people of Cambridge who worry about the upcoming violence, almost upsetting the normal routine of life. The chorus gives voice to these emotions in the way it is done in the Greek drama and provide a link between the audience and the characters of the play. The various feelings of the church is presented by the priest during this time, and precarious condition is presented as one is peasant, one is ambitious, and one wants to leave it to God. After the arrival of Archbishop Thomas Becket, the tempters arrive one by one to convince him either to capitulate to demands of Henry II or otherwise, who are also like selves of Thomas Becket. There is tussle between King Henry and Thomas Becket regarding power. Thomas wants more of the power returned to the church, whereas King wants more power over the church and have come to an insurmountable obstacle. In the second half of the play, Thomas is attacked by four knights and killed. They justify their action by saying that they were sent on order by the king, although history refers that the king was angry and made an offhand comment which they misinterpreted. They also claimed that Thomas searched out his execution so that he could be martyred for the church and become canonized. In next segment, I take up plot or summary of the play. And the plot or the summary of the play is presented in a very chronological, systematic order, which goes like this. The play opens on 2nd December 1170 in the Archbishop's Hall. A group of female commoners of Canterbury enter and stand near the cathedral. They are chorus singers. The women do not know why they were there, but they were mysteriously drawn because they feel something ill and unpleasant is about to happen. They further say that their lives are full of sufferings, but they have become accustomed with it. They compare their lives with landscapes of West. In the chorus, they complain about Archbishop's absence of 7 years. They have tried to remain unseen and unnoticed since then, though they see that there is no end to their sufferings and struggle. To quote, for us the poor, there is no action but only to wait and to witness. Unquote. Now enter three priests. The first priest talks about the 7 years loss of the absence of archbishop. The second priest wonders about the impact of Pope and the archbishop on the political condition of the English and the French king. The third priest replies harshly that any worries of politics are worldly. To quote, they have but now one law to seize power and keep it, and the steadfast can manipulate the greed and lust of others. Unquote. To which first priest replies that he worries about religious lives of the poor at the gate, and he thinks that they have forgotten their father in God. Now enters messenger and informs that Archbishop Thomas Becket is in England and is about to arrive the city and cathedral. The first priest hopes that hopes that there would be peace between King and Thomas Becket and remarks that his return means he has made peace with the king. To this, third priest wonders what peace could be found between the hammer and the anvil. The second priest asks if this means peace or war. The first priest asks the messenger if the archbishop has returned with the power of Rome to back him up and bring peace. The messenger assures that Thomas has the Pope, the King of France, and the English people on his side, but not the agreement of the English king. And after ending his speech, to quote, but no one considers it a happy prognostic, unquote. The messenger exits. The first priest starts immediately into his fears for the archbishop and for the church. He recalls when Thomas was chancellor and well loved by the king, even though all the barons hated him. He was always isolated. He continues to quote, had the king been greater or had he been weaker, things had perhaps been different for Thomas. To unquote. The second priest does not agree with this gloom. He thinks that the return of Thomas is good thing and he will help to strengthen the government. The third priest wants something to happen for ill or good. The government has been holding in a stalemate for 7 years. For good or ill, let the wheel turn. The chorus women have also been listening and want Thomas to go back to France. They do not want any change. They just want to live a quiet life. Although life is hard, but they are fearful of the changes that Thomas might bring with his arrival. When the second priest hears them complaining, he calls these women to court foolish, immodest, and babbling women. Unquote. He wants that they should wear happy faces to welcome Thomas, who is about to arrive in the cathedral, to quote, and give a hearty welcome to our good Archbishop. Unquote. Thomas enters and overhears the priest and interferes and says that let them speak. They might have right ideas. They speak better than they know and beyond your understanding. And he continues with, to quote, the wheel may turn and still be forever still, unquote. The second priest is full of apologies for ill manner and assures that they have his room ready and replying to first priest about security and safety, he remarks that king's men are always circling like a hungry hawk. The first tempter enters and calls him, who is one of the numerous selves of Thomas Becket. To quote, Old Tom, Gay Tom, Becket of London, and reminds of, to unquote, and reminds of the good time spent and convinces to give up his stern behavior and to take easier way of life. To quote, a nod is as good as a wink, unquote, and suggests to seek peace with the king. To quote, the easy man lives to eat the best dinners. Thomas denies first tempter, considering impossible for him, but to quote, the impossible is still a temptation, unquote. The second tempter enters and reminds him the time of his chancellorship and remarks, you were more powerful at that time. To quote, power obtained grows to glory, to unquote. He further reminds, to quote, power is present, holiness hereafter, to unquote. Thomas denies and remarks that he only answers to the church of God and he has power now to quote, condemn kings, not serve among their servants, unquote. And Thomas rejects his advice. The third tempter enters and claims to be unexpected, but Thomas remarks that he has been expecting him. The third tempter says he is, to quote, a country keeping lord who minds his own business, to unquote. Again, to quote, a rough, straightforward Englishman, unquote. And finally says that there is no hope of reconciliation with the king. He calls to join barons, and together with backing of Rome, they can end the, to quote, tyrannous jurisdiction, unquote. But Thomas rejects his suggestion with remark, to quote, no shall say that I betrayed a king, unquote. Again, to quote, if I break, I must break alone, unquote. The unexpected fourth tempter enters, but says Thomas knows him. To quote, you will is hard to bend. Your will is hard to bend, and with me beside you, you shall not lack a friend. Unquote. This tempter is strongest because he knows Thomas's most shameful fantasies, to go down in history as a martyr, and he gives the same answer to Thomas's question. To quote, can sinful pride be driven out only by more sinful? To unquote, that Thomas gave at the beginning. And the answer is to quote that the wheel may turn and still forever be still. Unquote. Thomas is silent, but chorus begins with claim that there is no rest to be found anywhere. They are restless and waiting for the danger they fear is coming. Four tempters addresses the audience. They speak together in verse. They say all things are unreal. They see Thomas as, to quote, obstinate, blind, intent on self destruction, to unquote. As are most men, they say that Thomas is, to quote, lost in the wonder of his own greatness, the enemy of society, enemy of himself, unquote. Then three priests speak Thomas in the chorus. They beg him not to fight the intractable tide. They ask him to quote, wait for the sea to subside, to unquote. Next, the chorus, priests, and four tempters all speak. First, chorus, then the priests, and then the tempters, alternating lines. They speak of the uncertainty of death and life. To quote, a man may climb the stair in the day and slip on a broken step, to unquote. Then chorus goes into a long speech about their unhappiness. They beg him to help them find some happiness. To quote, Thomas, Archbishop, save us, save us, save yourself. We may be saved. Destroy yourself, and we are destroyed. To unquote. But Thomas has come to a decision. His way is clear. He remembers that he once sought, to quote, pleasure, advancement, and praise, unquote. And he remarks, now is my way clear, now is the meaning plain. And he understands the last tempter was the most potent because he must not accept martyrdom for the sake of his pride. He realizes he must accept it, not yearn for it. Interlude is a sermon delivered by Thomas Archbishop. The sermon is delivered at the cathedral on Christmas morning 1170. It begins with a quote from the book of Luke in the Bible. To quote, glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace to men of goodwill. Unquote. He promises to make the sermon short, one. Then he goes on to speak that he wants to look into the deeper meaning of their Christmas sermons. He points out that we celebrate the birth and death of Christ on the same day. He asks why they would celebrate and mourn on the same day. Then he brings up the use of the word peace. He did not mean earthly peace, but a greater peace. Then he reminds them the next day they celebrate Saint Stephen's Day. He was the first martyr. He thinks that Christmas is closely related to the celebration of martyrs. Dying for Christ is not enough. That can happen by accident. And To quote, a Christian martyrdom is never an accident, for saints are not made by accident, unquote. He says that worldly ambitions do not lead to martyrdom either. A true martyr finds freedom by submitting to God. To quote, in heaven, the saints are most high, having made themselves most low, unquote. Thomas closes his sermon by asking the congregation to remember the Archbishop of Alphys, the martyr of Canterbury. Part 2 of the drama opens in the Archbishop's Hall on 29th of December 1170. 4 days have passed since the sermon of the interlude, and it has been 27 days since part 1. The chorus speak first. They talk about the arrival of the depths of winter, to quote, what signs of a bitter spring, unquote. The first priest enters carrying a banner of St. Stephen's. Some of the dialogue is spoken and some is sung. Next, second priest enters carrying a banner of St. John the Apostle. The third priest enters carrying the banner of the Holy Innocent. They chant and stand together with the banners behind them. 4 knights enter and the banners disappear. They are greeted as servants of the king. They say that they have ridden from France with orders from the king for the archbishop. Thomas, in the meantime, arrives and tells the priests that the moment has come. He tells the priest that he was involved in matters of another urgency. To quote, on my table, you will find the papers in order and documents signed. To unquote. He sends the priest away and speaks privately with the knights. Knights charges for being disloyal to king, but priest insist he has never betrayed the king, but he must serve a higher master. The knights move to take Thomas by force and try to attack. Becket says he will answer the charges in public. Becket insists that he is not against the king or king's desire to crown his son. He is not the one who excommunicated the king and his son. That was the Pope. Thomas adds that he has already spent 7 years away from his congregation. Knights tell him that the king's command is that he and his servants depart from this land and warn that they are accountable if they do not restrain Thomas. To quote, we come with the king's justice, we come with swords, unquote. The chorus gives an ominous speech that uses horrible images to paint the pictures of violence coming. To quote, I am not in danger, only near death, unquote. The priests beg him to flee, but he says he is ready to receive martyrdom. The chorus speaks again, and the scene changes to the cathedral. Meanwhile, a Latin chant is being sung in the distance. The women are preparing the upcoming death, but the priests are trying to bar the door. Finally, the priests accept his command and open the door. Knights enter, drunken, and taunt Becket, while priests try to hide Thomas. The knights began to chant the word traitor to him But Thomas argues he is, to quote, no traitor to king. I am priest, unquote, and faces them unarmed. The first knight wants him to quote, absolve all those you have excommunicated, to unquote. The second knight, to quote, resign the power you have arrogated, unquote. The third knight, restore to the king the money you appropriated, unquote. Again, the first knight, to quote, renew the obedience you violated, unquote. Thomas comments his cause to the church. Then the knights kill him while the chorus begs someone to clear the air. With the death of Archbishop, they see only pain and suffering. Afterwards, knight go to address the audience almost in defense and justification of murder. They were disinterested in the murder and were putting their country first. Although they are guilty of murder, Thomas is also guilty of suicide. At the close of the play, knights come forward, address the audience, and defend their actions. The murder was all right and for the best. It was in the right spirit, sober, and justified, so that power of church would not undermine the state power. The night leave. At last, the priest lament about the world without archbishop. The chorus end by asking the Lord and Christ to quote, have a mercy upon us, unquote, and to quote, Blessed Thomas, pray for us, unquote. This is all about the plain development of plot of the drama. But the beauty of drama lies in psychological study of the conflict which Beckett is undergoing, well exemplified his interaction with the tempters. Likewise, there are numerous subjects which Eliot has introduced in this drama. By using chorus and temptation scene, he attempts to observe the unity of time as well as the unity of action and unity of place has been well observed in this play, which has usually been violated by the greatest English dramatist. Now, the credit goes for T.S. Eliot to have written such a wonderful tragedy in which action is inherent inside instead of outside. That's all in this video. Thanks for watching.